Welcome to Kaleidoscope. Let's talk. She made headlines recently as one of Time magazine's top 100 most influential people for 2024. Rosanna Flamer Caldera is an LGBT rights activist who was the first female Sri Lankan representative to the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association, the ILGA, and she went on to become its co-secretary general. She founded Equal Ground, an organization advocating for LGBTIQ rights in Sri Lanka, and is a co-founder of the Women's Support Group Organization for Lesbian, Bisexual and Transgender Women. She's also an NGO advisor for the Hirschfield Eddy Foundation and the Global Fund for Women. 10th of June is the 20th anniversary of Equal Ground and the 20th Pride. So what better time than to have Rosanna join me in the studio today. Rosanna, congratulations. You're now one of Time's 100 most influential people. This recognition by Time, what does that do for your work and your end goal?
I'm still trying to get used to it because to me, I don't know, it's not like I'm wearing a crown on my head and walking around all the time. I just think that the recognition would also give me an opportunity to open more doors and make life a lot easier for the LGBTIQ community here.
What is the LGBTIQ situation in Sri Lanka today in terms of acceptance?
Well, in terms of acceptance, I think there is a lot more acceptance than there was, like, say, 5 years ago. We're still waiting for the laws to change, of course, and there has been movement with that as well. So, good. It's better, getting better every day.
So from when you started your activism to right now, what changes, if at all, do you see in society with regard to treatment of the LGBTIQ community?
Well, there's been a growing number of allies, yeah, and people who have actually joined hands to basically support and also assist the LGBTIQ community, and that was very prevalent when there was this case to the Supreme Court regarding the private members' bill saying it was unconstitutional. And there was more than 14, 15 cases filed against that case, yeah? And it led to an amazing Supreme Court decision as well. And there were other cases where allies like you also joined in, and we won the case against the police, for example. Police have been, far more accepting and tolerant and actually helpful with the LGBTIQ community. So a lot of changes. I mean, I remember when I was, first starting out, it was like, don't even say who you are or what you are,
You've learned a lot about how the US goes about addressing these issues. What's one major aspect that you'd import from there to Sri Lanka?
Well, obviously the laws. In the US, there is no law criminalizing same-sex relationships or for being transgender or for being yourself. There's also same-sex marriage there. And in this country, we still have to wait for the law to change, and hopefully it'll happen soon. And we certainly can't get married here because the government has been very vociferous about not allowing gay marriage.
A lot of our LGBTIQ plus people struggle when coming out. What is your advice to them, knowing what you know about our society and our country?
It's easy to talk for urban settings, but when you talk about rural settings and the way things are there culturally and socially, it's very difficult for LGBTIQ persons to be themselves. Our ethos has always been, let's learn about ourselves, let's be proud of who we are, and don't be ashamed of who you are because you're wonderful, you're beautiful and fantastic, and you are a human being who loves differently. But try telling that to a family in the rural areas, yeah? I mean, things are better, but here's the catch. Before the British came and imported their laws into Sri Lanka, everybody was fine with all of this, yeah? Just went about their business.
What was your experience like when you did announce to your family, to the community that you were gay?
Well, it was only my family I was worried about, my parents. And when I did come out to them, my father said, oh, because, I called hysterically on the phone. They were at a party. They came flying home. What's the matter? What's the matter? My mother was freaking out. And I said, this is what I'm... So my father looked and said, you called us from a party for this? I said, don't be silly, man. Everything is fine. And my mother said, it's okay, darling, and hugged me. And that was it, yeah. Um, they didn't ever have a problem with it.
What was it like in school?
I was not out in school, yeah, but I also wasn't sure of what I was in school. I mean, I knew I was attracted to girls, but I thought that was just, things that you have in school, girly crushes or whatever. I mean, I had lots of good friends. I mean, we're all girls after all.
Is there anything you'd like to say to Sri Lankan families about accepting their relatives and their children who belong to the LGBTIQ community?
Well, all I have to say is that we're all human beings. We're all different. Thank God for that. If we were all the same, we'd be like robots walking around. So everybody's different. Everybody loves differently. They all have, their own idiosyncrasies and their own likes and dislikes. So individuality should be celebrated, and their life should be celebrated and supported. As parents, we should love our children no matter what. My parents taught me that, yeah.
What needs to change within the LGBT community in Sri Lanka?
I can't really preach to that in that sense because, I mean, change comes only if you want change to happen. So little changes in your life can help others also understand their lives and be themselves. I've always been very open about my sexuality. But of course, you could turn around and say, I come from a very privileged family, and I am privileged not because we had money, but because my parents were so open-minded and they accepted me for who I was, or who I am, and they didn't think twice about it. I was their child, and that love for me would follow me till the day they died.
There are narratives forming about transgenderism that are seemingly quite widespread. For example, about trans athletes, which categories they should compete in. What are your thoughts on this?
I can't speak to the medical or scientific aspect of it. I'm sure somewhere along the line, the Olympic Committee and all the athletic committees or whatever will have categories for trans persons. Because I think in a way, cisgendered male and female athletes maybe feel uncomfortable. They shouldn't, but maybe they feel uncomfortable. Or maybe there's an unfair advantage that they speak about. I don't think that that is any cause to be concerned. I mean, there are quite a few athletic commissions that allow transgenders to compete as women and as men in those areas. So, it should be allowed, but if there is any kind of unfair advantage, they ban steroids in athletics or games or whatever, which gives somebody an unfair advantage. So maybe they're thinking the same thing because, transgender men have to take testosterone in order to maintain their masculinity, and the opposite for the women. So maybe they feel that that's an unfair advantage. But I think they're more afraid of transgender women than they're afraid of trans men.
When you speak about the West, people may turn around and say, that's the West. They will practice whatever. But let's look at Asia. Let's look at our part of the world. What can we learn from this part of the world about how we treat LGBTIQ people?
I would spotlight Thailand. Thailand never had a law criminalizing LGBTIQ persons, mainly because they were not conquered by the British and they didn't have British rule. But Thailand has been a basically full Buddhist country, and Buddhism doesn't play a role in politics over there. And as a result, they are far more accepting of people for who they are, and Thailand is booming. And it's a Buddhist country, and they are accepting of transgender people, accepting of LGBTIQ people. They're ready to pass gay marriage in Thailand. And as a Buddhist country, Sri Lanka, we should look to Thailand for, examples of how to be all accepting and all caring and all loving, yeah?
What have you learned about humanity in your activism?
It's the yin and the yang. There's the good and the bad. And sometimes you close your mind to the good because you're saturated with bad. But I feel that everything, anything bad that happens, good will follow. Everything good that happens, bad will follow, because it is balance after all. So I think that humans can be incredibly, incredibly cruel and awful, but they are also incredibly good and amazing. And I think we hear more about the awful than we hear about the good. When somebody goes and saves a kitty from the tree, nobody hears about that. But it's something good, yeah? So it's all those goodnesses put together that counter the bad.
Good luck with everything you're doing, Rosanna. Did you know that Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn? Subscribe, follow, and like us for more.